Chapter 15. The Earthbound, Lost Souls, and the Accidental Tourist. In my many years as a medium, I have encountered many different types of spirits, some adjusted and happy in the non-physical realms, and some not so happy. When a spirit is unsettled in the spirit realm, the spirit tends to hang around on the earth plane, becoming what we call an earthbound spirit. Often, earthbound spirits attach to humans, although the people they attach to don't always understand what's going on, causing a variety of problems. If a spirit attaches to you, that attachment can drain your energy, not unlike a house guest who won't leave, causing you to feel tired and weak. You may get headaches and have trouble sleeping. You might feel anxious or depressed, or you could suffer from bouts of anger or any number of other issues caused by this psychic drain. Don't confuse this with haunting or possession, by the way. It's not the same thing. These earthbound spirits are merely lost and confused. They're not ghosts who haunt, which happens when spirits refuse to leave and become deliberately mischievous and antagonistic. Nor are they demons, entities comprised of pure evil that never take human form. Many reasons exist for why a spirit remains earthbound, including still feeling the pull of addictions, a desire to help grieving loved ones, being very attached to a home or other physical location, or refusing to accept that he or she is dead, often because the person had died suddenly or unexpectedly, never having a chance to psychologically prepare himself or herself for the transition. Unfinished business with others still alive, or even a lack of belief in life after death can also keep a spirit earthbound. When spirits are earthbound, their personal crisis becomes a problem for all of us because of the effect they have on the planet's energy. During our time here on Earth, each of us creates our own energy field. If we live in a way that expands unconditional love and increases light, we harbor more light energy. If we live in a state of negativity because of attachments and emotional situations that are unhealthy, then we harbor more dark energy. Wherever we are on the light or dark spectrum, this energy is our true essence, our spiritual self. When we cross over at death, we take with us the energy that makes up our true essence, the same way we carried it with us in the physical. Dark energy caused by distressing issues that we experience here on the physical does not automatically disappear just because we have lost our physical body. We don't achieve automatic enlightenment just because we are dead. These issues are spiritual in nature, and we carry them with us when we transition into the spirit world. Often, those issues do resolve themselves because the spirit world does offer help. My spirit guides had told me many times that some spirits take part in therapy sessions to help them overcome issues that are inhibiting them from progressing. We are working with him, my guides will explain to me of such a soul. Of course, these spirits have to be willing to work on their problems just as they would here on earth. For those spirits who do not want to accept help from others in the spirit world, these issues will remain and will distract their attention, causing the spirits to want to cling to the physical plane where the issues first appeared and developed. This contributes to the dark energy here on Earth. It makes no difference whether a person is physically present here or on Earth or present in the Earth plane as a spirit. Either way, the person's energy still contributes to the Earth plane's energy field and so affects the whole. One of the reasons Lightworkers are incarnate on Earth is to help release such earthbound spirits, which, as we saw in Chapter 2, involves elevating the earthbound spirit's energy to accept more light and thus transforming the dark energy the spirit carries into light energy. The earth plane is very heavy with these earthbound spirits right now, so there's a real need to release them and help them cross over into the light in order to help restore the earth's energetic balance. This is why teachers on higher planes are activating so many light workers in the form of ghost hunters and teams of paranormal researchers who help free the earthbound spirits. Addicted or otherwise maladapted spirits. One of the most common types of spirits who hang around and become earthbound is spirits of people who were addicted to drugs or alcohol. Because humanity has become increasingly materialistic, we have many more spirits clinging to the physical in order to satisfy their leftover hunger for the material side of life. As previously explained, addictions, disorders, and even perverse behaviors are still present within the essence of the person's spirit, because these patterns are not only psychological and are physical in nature, but they are also spiritual as well. These issues, coupled with the spirit's refusal to accept that he or she has died, will cause the spirit to try to satisfy these cravings here on earth, because they can't be satisfied in the spirit realm. Even an addiction to cigarettes can cause spirits to remain behind and perhaps attach themselves to a smoker who probably has no idea that it's happening, in an attempt to vicariously satisfy their addictive desires. But this strategy doesn't work because the spirits are no longer in physical bodies that react the same way to physical substances. The spirits remain frustrated and unhappy, and they find themselves stuck in a world where they no longer belong. Caretaker spirits. Some spirits won't go until they can see their loved ones happy again. For example, my cousin cried night after night when her mother passed over. The two of them had been inseparable, and my cousin could not imagine how she would go on without her beloved mother. One night, after crying herself to sleep, she dreamed of her mother. In the dream, her mother sat before her with a stern look, lifting her index finger and pointing it at my cousin. My cousin awoke and thought, "What have I done? My mother looks so angry at me." The next night, she again cried herself to sleep, and her mother appeared in the dreams once more with the same stern look. This time, when she awoke, my cousin understood the message. Her crying needed to stop. My aunt wanted her daughter to stop mourning so that everyone could heal and get on with their lives, including my deceased aunt. This was a serious message not to linger in the grieving process. I suggested to my cousin that each night before she went to bed, she prayed for both herself and her mother to be supported and guided through their respective processes. She found that doing this not only helped her through the grieving, but it also helped my aunt to be able to move on in the spirit realm. My cousin made a conscious effort to work through her grieving instead of staying stuck in it, and the visits eventually stopped. My aunt felt good about moving on and was no longer held back by her daughter's pain. She was always free to visit when she chose to, but was no longer held earthbound trying to soothe her daughter's pain. In my work as a medium, I found that many spirits, just like my aunt, simply cannot move on until their loved ones have released them, and prayer can be a particularly effective way to help this process because it transforms dark energy into light and spiritually elevates all those involved in the process, both the person doing the praying and the person being prayed for. Other spirits desperately want to connect with a relative to deliver an urgent message or to reveal unknown details about their deaths. Sometimes they become quite persistent, and often people who are not mediums will find themselves repeatedly dreaming of a loved one or experiencing strange occurrences, such as lights turning on by themselves or unexplained noises. all attempts by the Spirit to get attention so that the Spirit can get his or her point across. If a loved one isn't able to decipher the message, he or she may have to visit a medium or another Lightworker for help communicating with the Spirit so that the Spirit can share his or her message and then be at peace. Permission-seeking spirits. I have also encountered many spirits who don't understand what has happened to them. When someone dies, the light comes for him or her to help the spirit transition into the spirit realm. But if the spirit misses that opportunity the first time, the spirit can become lost and may need gentle guiding back to the light. Saying goodbye. Sophia's story. One Saturday morning, I awoke to what sounded like the cry of a little girl calling, "Mommy." Ever since my daughters were born, the slightest noise jolts me out of a sound sleep, and I've been known to hear even a cough through two closed bedroom doors. So when I heard the cry, I jumped up from my bed to check on Kara, who was 6 years old at the time. I found her sound asleep. Next, I checked on Rachel, who was sleeping comfortably in her crib. Perhaps I had been dreaming, I thought. The very next morning, I dreamed that a little girl was standing beside my bed. When I awoke and opened my eyes, there she was, with her big blue eyes and long curly blonde hair, staring right into my face. "Help me find my mommy," she pleaded. I jumped up and squeezed my eyes shut, thinking I must still be dreaming. And when I opened them again, she was gone. Then I remembered what had happened the morning before, and I immediately knew that I had a lost little girl situation and that her spirit was trapped, confused, and earthbound. I began to talk to her. "Sweetheart," I said out loud, I do not know your mommy or where she is, so please go find someone else to help you." Yet throughout the week, she continued to make appearances in my bedroom. I felt her presence all around me, and several times I heard her crying. As the days passed, I tried to enlist my guides to help her, but they told me she was resisting and wanted to stay with me. "But why?" I asked, confused. "I don't know her, and I don't know her mother." "She can't stay here with me. She has to cross over." I wasn't getting any answers from my guides, and in the meantime, those big blue eyes were haunting me. Then Wednesday rolled around. At that time, this was my day for doing readings at a local metaphysical shop. Usually I took appointments, but I also took occasional walk-ins. On this Wednesday, I had 2 scheduled appointments and then stopped for a coffee break. The owner of the shop came to the back room where I was sitting and asked, "Got time for a walk-in?" "Sure," I said. In came a blonde-haired woman clutching her purse and looking very nervous. It was obvious to me that she didn't normally visit psychic shops. As she sat down across the table from me, I was stunned at the first words that came out of her mouth. "Last year, we lost our little girl," she said. "Can you contact her?" I nearly fell off my chair. As soon as this reading began, zoom, into the room came the same little angel who had been trying to get me to help her all week long. I told the woman that her daughter knew she would come to see me and that the girl's spirit had been with me since Saturday. We dialogued for almost an hour. The little girl's name was Sophia, and she had been born with a genetic disease. The doctors did not expect her to live past the age of 2, but somehow she hung on until she turned 8. Mother and daughter had been very close until the girl's death a year ago, and ever since, the mother had suffered from such profound grief that she was basically unable to function. The reunion was incredibly emotional, and the mother wept as the presence of her daughter in the room became palatable. I cried too, but I also laughed with both of them when they recounted how Sophia used to love to get into her mother's things and put on fashion shows in her room. Your daughter is earthbound, I eventually explained to the mother. It's time to release her. I couldn't let go until I knew she was okay, the mother said through her tears. It was obvious to me that for her part, Sophia would not go without her mother's blessing either, and that she also needed reassurance that she would see her mother again. We called in Sophia's paternal grandfather, who had crossed over years before and was nearby waiting to help, and we released Sophia to him. Her mother tearfully told Sophia that it was okay to go with Papa and that Mommy would be there soon. Thus assured, Sophia was finally ready. I became overwhelmed watching as grandfather and granddaughter held hands and then gracefully disappeared into a brilliant landscape of white light. When it was all over, Sophia's mother told me that it was the hardest thing she had ever done, but she knew that she had to release her child. Confused and disoriented spirits, Danny's story. Another persistent type of spirit is the kind that crosses over traumatically after being ripped from the physical body without understanding what happened. The scene in the book The Lovely Bones, as well as in the movie of the same name, where Susie's spirit runs away from her murderer, is a good illustration of this. Just like little lost Sophia in the last example, these souls may be disoriented. It's like being suddenly transported to a foreign country where you don't speak the language and everyone ignores you. You have no idea what to do or where to go. Sometimes these spirits see the deceased loved ones who come to help them, but the new spirit refuses to go with them because they don't understand that they have indeed died as well. Instead, they attach to the last person they saw in the physical, often the doctors, paramedics, firemen, police officers, or rescue workers who tried to save them. Although such emergency personnel rarely talk to anyone but trusted family, friends, and co-workers about this phenomenon, the truth is that many of them feel haunted in subtle and not so subtle ways by the victims they try to save. My husband, Steve, now a detective with the New York Police Department, had this happen to him many times when he was a patrol officer. He'd get up to 25 calls per shift, often rushing to a crime or accident scene where lives had been lost in the most violent and tragic ways. Through scenes shown to me during meditation, as well as interviews my husband conducted, I learned Danny's story. It started with a snowy January night when the roads were slick and many calls about accidents were coming in. As Steve was just starting his shift, a 17-year-old boy named Danny, who lived with his mother and one of the neighborhood walk-ups, had been feeling antsy. He was tired of studying and didn't want to face the chore of filling out his college admission papers just yet. He called Mikey, who lived down the street and had been Danny's best friend since 6th grade. "Let's go for a ride," he pleaded with his friend. "Somewhere, anywhere. I just need to get out of here. I need a little change of scenery." Agreeing to go, Mikey snuck out of his apartment the back way and hopped into his half-rusted green Honda. He pulled up in front of Danny's house a minute later. Danny flew down the snow-covered steps to meet him, ignoring his mother, who yelled behind, "Where do you think you are going?" "The temperature is dropping and heavy snow is headed for us later tonight. A nor'easter is coming in. You'll get in an accident if you go out." "She is always worried about something," Danny muttered not bothering to zip his Letterman jacket as he hopped in the car with Mikey, who had the heater already cranked to maximum and the music on loud. Drive by Vanessa's house, Danny suggested, hoping to think of a reason to coax Vanessa out for a burger. He was working his way up to asking her to the prom in the spring. Mikey laughed and floored it, screeching his tires as the car flew down the wet pavement. About 15 minutes later, he was reaching for a CD in the back of the car when an SUV pulled in his path. Mikey swerved on the now icy roads and managed to miss the SUV as Danny hung onto the dash. "That was close. You trying to kill me?" Danny joked, impressed with his friend's quick reaction. They headed towards Central Park West, with Mikey slowing down a bit, even though there was no traffic. On the car radio, the boys heard warnings about the impending storm. "1 hour with Vanessa, and then we need to get back," Mikey said. He knew that he was probably going to get grounded for a week if his folks figured out that he snuck out again. He was imagining how he might try to sneak back in unnoticed when an oncoming vehicle's bright lights momentarily blinded him. Blinking hard, he did not see the BMW truck in his path. "Holy!" he began to yell. "Mikey, look out!" Danny screamed. The sound of twisted metal and smashed glass filled the air. Mikey's car skidded and flipped over, smoke pouring out of the back. "Danny!" Mike yelled for what seemed like an eternity because the crushing metal sound never seemed to stop. Once the car came to a standstill, Mikey unclipped his seatbelt and shimmied through his open window by sliding on his aching back. He heard no sound coming from Danny. His legs were shaking so badly that he had to crawl as he made his way to the other side of the car to look for his friend. What he found horrified him. Danny was convulsing, and his skin was white as the snow that was now falling at a steady pace. Get help," Danny whispered. "I can't feel anything. Am I still alive?" Mikey reached in his pocket, praying that his cell phone was still there and hadn't been smashed. With shaking fingers, he punched in 911. "I think my friend is dying. He's dying," he yelled in the phone as tears ran down his cheeks. "You have to get here quick. You have to help him." Steve and his partners were the first officers to arrive on the scene. "Is Danny okay?" Mikey cried as Steve leaned down to check on the boy who was still inside the car, not moving. "Tell me Danny's going to be okay." Crawling deeper into the car, Steve suddenly saw what a trained cop will usually recognize as a point of no return. Danny's neck was gushing blood, spraying with every beat of his heart, and there was a pool of blood underneath him. Danny had severed a major artery in his neck. "Officer," Danny said in a shallow voice, "help me, please. My ma is going to be real worried." "It's okay," Steve said, putting his arms around Danny's face and neck to warm him in an attempt to stop the bleeding. Steve tried to keep the dying boy as calm as he could. "You're going to be all right, buddy. Just hang on." "I gotta fill out my college entrance papers tonight, or everyone is going to be mad," Danny said. "The ambulance is on its way," Steve said. "Just stay with me. Tell me about yourself. Do you play any sports?" "Yeah, baseball. I think I might get a college scholarship." Danny said, I think someday I'll... As his voice trailed off, Danny died in Steve's arms. Here 1 second, gone the next. Ben's story. 2 nights later, a call for help came in from a newlywed named Sally who lived on West End Avenue. Married for just 6 months, Sally and Benjamin had been getting ready to go out for dinner with Sally's parents. Ben had come home late, as usual, even though he promised Sally he'd get home early. Knowing Sally would be angry, Ben stopped on the street to buy her some $3 carnations, his way of saying he was sorry for never being on time. "You better get in that shower," Sally scolded when he walked in the door, hardly acknowledging the carnations. "We've been late for the last 4 times we've gone to dinner with Mom and Dad. You know how Dad is about eating late." Ben gave her a quick kiss and then jumped into their cramped little bathroom, which contained no more than a shower, a small sink, and a toilet, each within arm's reach of the other. Flipping on the hot water, Ben stripped, jumped into the shower, and soaked up his hair. He used that awful flowery shampoo that Sally kept on the ridge of the tub, and then he reached for his electric razor that was plugged in near the sink. When the soap from the shampoo fell into his eyes, Ben cursed and tried to rub it away. In the process, he dropped the shaver, and it fell into the water on the shower floor, instantly electrocuting him. A few minutes later, Sally forcefully opened the bathroom door to hurry her husband along. She found his body slumped on the shower floor, the water still running, and heard the loud buzzing of the hot, live razor. Hysterically sobbing, Sally called 911. When Steve arrived, he could smell the still burning flesh from the hallway. He knew not to approach Ben's body because the water was still electrified. Realizing that this young man had been alive 1 minute, but instantly dead the next, Steve asked his partner to notify the superintendent to shut the power off. "I am so sorry," Steve told Sally. "There was nothing any of us could have done." One more fix. Nancy's story. 4 nights after Ben's death, Steve was on patrol when a call came in about trouble at an SRO, police lingo for a single-room occupancy hotel, in a lower-income area of the city. Trouble at SROs was one of the worst possible types of calls because these places were often inhabited by drug addicts and other shady characters who lived in the dilapidated rooms with virtually nothing to their names. On this night, a 40-year-old woman named Nancy, a former teacher turned drug addict, had taken a bad hit of heroin and called the front desk for help. Steve got there before the ambulance and knocked down her door. He found Nancy convulsing on the floor near her thin, dirty mattress. He could tell that she was not going to make it. Reaching out to him, Nancy whispered, "I made a mistake. I don't want to die." Steve held her hand, and a minute later, she was gone. Helping the helper. I tried to make our home a sanctuary for my husband because he sees so much sadness on the job. Usually, he's able to shake off the events of the day, but after this particular string of tragedies, Steve began to have daily headaches and would wake up looking exhausted, even when he had had 8 hours of sleep. "Hun, are you coming down with something?" I asked him, but he shook his head. "I don't think I'm getting sick," he told me, but I've never felt so drained. Coming from a man who never complained about anything, this worried me. Weeks passed, and still the headaches wouldn't subside. Steve began to look simply whipped. This athletic giant who could break through locked doors hardly had the energy to walk up our stairs to go to bed. One night, as I was turning off the light, he rolled over and confessed, "Savannah, I know something is wrong. On top of everything else that's going on with me, I keep having these strange dreams." "What kind of dreams?" I asked him. "It's going to sound crazy," he implied. "Try me," I replied. "Okay. I'm with all these people in the supermarket," he started. "Everyone is looking at me. They look familiar. I've seen them before, but I don't really remember who they are. One of them says to me, 'I don't know what to do.' The next one says, 'I don't know where to go.' Another one yells, 'You have to help me. I'm lost.'" Steve paused to take a deep breath. "Then I see the face of that boy," he continued, almost not wanting to say the next words. "You remember the one, right? He died in that car accident. He played baseball and wanted to go to college. His name was Danny." I nodded, understanding. "And then do you see the face of the man in the shower?" I asked. "Yes," Steve said, a little amazed. "He's the one in the supermarket who talks about wanting to go back. He's saying something about meeting people for dinner, and then I see that drug-addicted woman who took the bad heroin," I said, finishing his sentence for him. "Yeah, she's the one who tells me I need a hit. Where can I score?" he said. "I keep telling all of them to go away and leave me alone, but they keep saying, 'We don't know what to do. Tell us what to do.' And the boy, well, he won't stop staring at me." Then, in a voice that sounded completely wrung out, he said, "I'm so tired, Savannah." Although I was still concerned, I finally knew exactly what had happened to my husband, and I knew what I had to do to help him. Steve had been the last one to connect with most of those poor souls before they faced sudden, violent, unexpected deaths. When they died, the one comfort that remained was the officer whose face was the last thing they saw, the man who had tried to help them and who seemed so strong and sure. In Ben's case, even though he died instantly before Sally called 911, his confused spirit was still in that apartment when Steve arrived, trying to help. These spirits were earthbound, trapped because of the trauma of being abruptly ripped from their bodies. Instead of crossing over in a calm way and joining their friends and relatives who had already passed, they were confused about what had happened into their earthly life, wondering why no one seemed able to see them or hear them anymore. They didn't fully realize they were dead and so remained stuck between two realms, clinging to the person who came to help, hoping that he could somehow make things right again. They could not stop haunting his dreams, and their energetic demands were taking their toll on his physical body. "Steve, I think I can help you," I said, gently asking him to get out of bed and go with me into my office. Once there, I lit some candles, took his hand, and asked him to close his eyes as I continued to explain what was happening. "The spirits of these people are attached to you because they want you to help them," I said. "That's why you're tired. They're taking your energy, draining you. They're chattering at you in your head and causing you to get those headaches. They don't allow you to get restful sleep at night. We need them to detach from you and cross over into the spirit world." I knew I had to go in that zone where I could connect with them and try to help them. When I did, it didn't take long for me to sense how Danny felt trapped, how Ben was struggling accepting the truth, and how Nancy was going through spiritual withdrawals from her addiction. Calling in my own spirit guides, I asked them to find the earthbound spirits' loved ones to help them cross over. I figured that Danny, Ben, and Nancy were so traumatized that they'd never trust me enough to help them. But I was hoping I could get them to go with their loved ones and return with them to the light. What followed was days of intense meditation and discussion with my guides, who were doing everything possible to right the situation. One found Danny's grandfather, Lewis, in the afterlife and enlisted him to help find Danny and bring him gently to the other side. It didn't take long before another of my guides found Ben's friend Alex, who had died young of cancer, and offered to take Ben by the hand and lead him on to his new journey. The most poignant reunion occurred when Nancy's mother came forward to embrace her daughter, helping her see her true self as whole and addiction-free. All three of these earthbound spirits were finally ready to move on. And as they did, Steve's headaches disappeared and he began to get his energy back. Soon, he was feeling like his old self again. The recurring dream about the supermarket went away and was replaced with Steve's usual dream of getting a call saying that the New York Giants needed him, and pronto. Sending earthbound spirits to the light. As emergency workers do, Lightworkers often attract earthbound spirits as well. Lightworkers do it inadvertently, drawing attention because of the extrasensory perceptions they possess. The earthbound spirit recognizes that although everyone else seems to be ignoring them, the Lightworkers can often see and or hear them. So they cling to the Lightworkers, hoping they can help them, just like the little lost girl kept coming back to me, asking me to find her mother. Fortunately, there's no need to be alarmed about such clinginess. As I said before, these spirits are not demons or negative entities, and although they can annoy you with headaches, fatigue, and bad dreams, they can't seriously hurt you. If you find yourself or someone else feeling drained or unsettled because of a clinging spirit, shield yourself before you do anything else by envisioning a white light of protection surrounding you that is so strong that nothing can penetrate it. As you'll remember from the discussion of shielding in Chapter 5, this technique will keep you grounded and will prevent your energy field from absorbing negative energies. Do not forget this important step. In fact, it's vital that you, as a Lightworker, remember to shield yourself daily, just as you remember to buckle your seatbelt every time you get in the car. It's that important. After you shield yourself, ask the spirit what the spirit's message is, or what, if anything, the spirit may want to convey. Use the dialoguing method detailed in Chapter 15 to talk with the spirit and tell him or her that it is time to move on and that he or she does not belong in the physical world anymore. You may also want to enlist your own guides or deceased loved ones to meet with the earthbound spirit to explain what has happened and help guide the spirit back to the light so the spirit can cross over, the way my spirit guides found Danny's grandfather to help him go into the light. At times, even when a Lightworker tries to help such spirits cross over, some refuse to leave. That's why shielding is so important. It will protect you as you continue trying to dialogue with the spirit, which might take several days or possibly even several weeks until he or she eventually accepts what has happened and moves on. Assisting the transition. If you are present when someone crosses over, explain to the person what is happening. Keep in mind that anyone who is near death is actually in a state of altered consciousness, including those who are delirious, are comatose, or those who are in advanced stages of dementia. Such people are usually more capable of interacting with both their outer and inner worlds than you might expect. As long as the physical body still has breath in it, always assume that some level of consciousness is present and that the person can indeed hear and understand what you are saying on some level. That's why it's vital to talk to the person who is making his or her transition to prepare the person for the journey that is ahead. You might say that it's okay to go now and suggest that he or she look for the light and move toward it. Tell the person that his or her loved ones are there in the light, waiting with open arms. If you know the names of the person's loved ones who are already in spirit, name them as you speak about them. If you sense that the dying person may be worried about those left behind, reassure the person that you will all be reunited in the spirit world one day, and that everyone whom he or she leaves behind here on earth will be okay. Tell the person that his or her family members are all willing to lovingly release the person into the white light. This is a very important step. My mother worked as a geriatric nurse for many years and has often seen deathbed patients clinging to life for days, just waiting for their grown children to arrive from other cities or states before they can pass in peace. Such patients needed to know that everyone was okay with their dying, and they needed a chance to say their goodbyes. Know that everyone was okay with their dying, and they needed a chance to say their goodbyes, even if they couldn't talk or weren't conscious. Communicating with these people making their transitions can be done out loud or telepathically, whichever seems most appropriate or most comfortable for you. Because the physical body is fading, you'll be communicating more on a spiritual level, so the need to say words out loud is not all that strong. If you are not present at the exact time of death or shortly before the death, you can still communicate with the person's spirit from wherever you may be at the time. The connection and bond of love and support that you share with the dying person will defy any geographical distance. After he or she has left the physical, continue to pray for your loved one and send positive light-inducing thoughts to help support him or her in the transition process. You can use the same process for people you may not know personally as well, such as after a natural disaster such as a hurricane or an earthquake that claimed many lives, or after a fatal tragedy like a school shooting or September 11th. Lightworkers often offer such assistance to the collective by sending prayers or light-inducing thoughts to all those affected. This works even when you don't have a personal connection with the people you are trying to help, because as you read in the very first chapter of this book, we all share the energetic connection through Source. After all, anytime lightworkers take even the smallest action to spread love and hope on the planet, transmuting darkness into light, they are tapping into an energy that is far greater than most people could ever imagine. If you are part of this virtual lightworker army that exists today, you are, through the grace of Source, serving as a channel for the light, holding it, nurturing it, directing it, and using it for good in a world that is in desperate need of your service. Gently, but with enormous strength, this Lightworker army is using the many powerful tools and abilities outlined in this book to tip the scales and restore balance to a universe that is itself constantly evolving. The direction its evolution takes is entirely dependent on the amount and quality of light that we on Earth bring forward. As each Lightworker awakens to his or her path, that light expands exponentially, and nothing short of miracles occur.